Hello again, and welcome to another edition of Media Watch. I'm your co-host, Eric Tait.
I'm Bob Anthony.
And our guest for this session is Dr. Alan Singer, Ph.D., one of our longtime Media Watch resource people and guests. And we're pre-taping the Wednesday before our Monday air, brought to you by the good graces of Manhattan Neighborhood Network and EVT Educational Productions. And the stuff that's been big in the news and will still be in the news, the climate conference, the possible impeachment because of the national security craziness of our president. There's some other things dealing with white supremacy and military people getting arrested. And of course, there's some other being black and in the U.S. dealing with other things, which we'll get to. And to kick it off, Dr. Alan Singer. Alan, my take on this is, how did the media deal with the global climate conference? Because it wasn't just a conference, it was a global phenomenon. And tell us partly, initially, about your participation, leading up to it and at the actual thing.
Well, first, I marched on Friday for about 3 hours. It was very hot, but it was incredible. We assembled at Foley Square. March was supposed to start at 1. They had to start it at 12:30 because there wasn't any more room at Foley Square for people.
Okay.
I have no idea how many people were there because you couldn't see.
Okay.
Picture looked humongous.
We marched down. We marched down Broadway, and the kids are terrific. They're yelling, they're screaming, they're banging on drums, they're in costumes. It was invigorating, really. I hate to put this on poor Greta. Greta Thunberg, is so angry, rightly.
Yeah.
But what she says is, you're putting it on us. And I have to say, I'm 70 years old, and I was so excited that these young people are picking up the baton, because it is going to be their generation that have to live with the consequences. One funny piece is, so Bill de Blasio comes out in
the mayor of the city of New York, folks,
to march, but I wasn't happy with him. The previous Friday, de Blasio tweets that New York City school kids will be excused from school for attending the rally.
Right.
And it was really good, and they just had to bring a note from their parents. But then 2 days before the rally, he announces teachers can't go with them. So you're going to have 100,000 kids without their teachers.
No chaperone.
Not the chaperones. The people are going to teach them to understand.
Sure.
The people are going to help them how to be organized and to be responsible. They can't come because it's too political. And it was ridiculous.
How is environmental protesting too political?
Right, exactly. One of the things I said to students in my class is, I said, where we're sitting now, in 2050, maybe underwater. Now, I'm not worried because I'm going to be over 100.
Yes.
But you're going to be in your 40s, and you need to worry about this.
I mean, it was invigorating to see that, because we've seen generations past talking about doing something. At least in my memory, starting with the 60s. And then, sort of a lull, and then it sort of picked up again. Then you have another lull in consciousness about the climate. And now it seems like we've actually hit the hearts of a lot of people.
Keep going.
No, just the students were terrific, and Greta, she's a good face of this movement, although she shouldn't be the only one. It should be more. It needs to be a little more spread out.
They did do that.
Okay.
At the rally, they were very careful. So there were New York kids and had diverse speakers at the rally. I was on a video clip with Latino boy and girl from Alfred E. Smith High School from South Bronx, who a teacher I work with encouraged them to come. I won't say his name.
Yes.
So
don't throw them under the bus. Yes.
So
they made an effort to do it,
Yes.
but you're right. The march, it was overwhelmingly white, middle-class professional kids. And they needed to have made other parts of the world, obviously, they were not. There were massive marches in Kenya and South Africa, and Maori kids in New Zealand, kids from India. So the world was very diverse.
Here's my point to that, because that gets to where I want to bring us to the title of the show, Media Watch. I'm looking at the press coverage of this global phenomenon, and I didn't do a critically scientific survey per se. This is my osmosis and talking to a few people. I thought, from my perspective, that the print folks did pretty decent job of covering the global phenomenon. I'm not sure if I'm off base or not, but they did a fairly decent job of letting us know and letting their readers know that this was a global thing, not just a New York thing. I'm not quite sure television did it. I didn't check social media, but television for me, with the possible exception, possibly, because I remember one of the MSNBC anchors, Chris Hayes, did a run-up to this week with 2 special shows on the climate change issue. He did 2 different hours on that, which I found quite refreshing in that he was bringing it into central focus for his show. But I'm not sure the rest of the media. I mean, like ABC, CBS, NBC. What was their coverage like? Can anybody elucidate for me?
Well, I mean, there are pockets of brilliance in what I saw, and I was watching Democracy Now! With Amy Goodman last couple nights.
Not mainstream media,
not mainstream media,
but good media.
But good media. I mean, you can't. I mean, her research and her background. I mean, it's impeccable. And she did long interviews with Greta Thunberg, and
you say her name right. I
yes,
can't even.
He's been checking.
You know why I'm saying it right? Because on the show, Amy Goodman asked her. I said, "Have I been mispronouncing your name?" And she said, "Well, the way I pronounce it is." And so I actually reran the tape
so you
could
hear
sure
it.
I could pronounce it. So it's
good journalism.
Yes, and but on the show last night, it wasn't just Greta. It was her and the other young people speaking. So it was like everyone from different nations, they all opened their dialogue in different languages.
Oh, wow.
And so that, and they gave a background of how this came together.
Okay.
In print, I've mainly seen in mainstream media, mainly coverage of the marches and the visuals, not so much the depth.
Yeah,
and that's what I found lacking.
That was the other part of how pre and post, as far as I'm concerned, U.S. New York mainstream media may have fallen down on the job, because for me, when we talk about all the stories we've covered on Media Watch about how the media don't connect the dots and don't do it, this is the perfect opportunity, or was, for our media to tie in the craziness that's sitting at our Environmental Protection Agency, the craziness about this current administration rolling back all of the environmental protections that were put in place, not just by Barack Obama. I mean, that's why this guy's rolling him back, but because over the years from Richard Nixon's time on, this country has actually gone down the positive path of trying to do right by the environment. Dragging, kicking, and screaming.
Yes.
But
yes.
Alan, you have a better perspective as a historian. Tell us about that.
First, I want to comment on a good media coverage and a bad media coverage.
Yeah.
The New York Times, I thought on the marches was very, very good. And they had like a photo essay, like a PowerPoint thing you could hit. And they covered every
pretty much
rally all over the world with all its diversity.
They had great photos in there.
That was the best coverage. The worst, what a surprise, Fox News. They did something that was gross. Okay, so Greta, I'm going to have to say.
No, believe me, she doesn't.
She understands.
She said she never gets upset when people.
She understands.
I'm a Greta groupie.
Yeah.
So I'm watching her speech at the United Nations Climate Summit, and she's magnificent, powerful, pointed, use of evidence, rhetorical. She must have studied King's Speech in Washington, because she kept, and I dare you. She kept on repeating, had a line that she was repeating, how dare you, how dare you. Really good. and that's not even her language she's speaking, and that's what's so astounding about this young woman.
That's true.
But I showed it to my class, and we look, and there were 1 million hits. There were 35,000 thumbs up. There were 25,000 thumbs down. We couldn't figure out why there would be any thumbs down. Well, then we found out. Fox News had commentators denouncing her. Who is she to tell us? And telling people to basically
thumbs down. Yeah.
So what we have
they
is
launched a campaign.
Yes, they
an
launched
anti-Greta campaign.
Are you kidding me?
That's news to me. I'm glad you brought that to our
that was in
attention.
today's paper. Today's Times talked about how the right-wing groups.
So Wednesday, the previous Wednesday when the show airs, the Times actually
has an article.
took the Fox people to task for doing that. See, now this is what we're talking about when we're talking about a propaganda organization masquerading as a news organization, folks. The fact that a so-called news organization would actually launch a campaign against a young activist and get their followers and their viewers to go post negative indicators about her speech is beyond the pale.
That's just mean.
That's more than mean.
Yeah, I mean, there's no other word. I mean, there are other words I can't use on the show.
Yeah, that is.
But that's astounding as a social media person. You don't take thumbs up and thumbs down terribly seriously most of the time anyway. But when you see, like you said, I would have been stunned to see that many thumbs down. I'm like, wait a second, get out of here. This has been botted.
That's
exactly the word I was going to use. I figured there's a bot out there. Somebody turned on an automatic thumbs down
bot,
and that's what's going on. But
so
now,
it turns out to be Fox News, which probably got assisted by some thumbs down bots as well.
Yes, yeah.
Because
I would not be surprised.
There's an interesting book out now that Naomi Klein has out. I didn't write the title down, but she was on, I think, Christiane Amanpour's show talking about it. And Hari Srinivasan was her interviewer. And part of it is The House is on Fire, part of the title. Fire, subtitle, whatever. Sort of what Greta has been saying.
Yes.
We cannot wait because the house is burning down. And Klein's part of her argument was this stuff that's anti-climate has been controlled and put in place because you're goring the ox of the people who make money from the fossil fuel industry.
Yeah.
And they have no plans to give up their money, and so they will torpedo any Green New Deal, because part of the book is why we need to turn the new Green New Deal into a new Deal, but for the 21st century Green New Deal. And I didn't catch the whole interview. I caught the tail end of it. But what she was saying to one of his questions is, these people don't want to give up their money. They will continue to fight to keep the fossil fuel industry because there are too many things in place that puts money in too many people's pocket. The way we win is we show the rank and file American people that, we're going to build a whole Green New Deal that's going to build jobs. And not going to leave you on the sideline. And it's going to be not just good for the money people, but it's going to be good for everybody, and it's going to be good for the planet. It was a fascinating argument that she was making. But the fact that these books are coming out, and the fact that these women, young women, older women, writing books and are demonstrating and are using the same phrases, the house is on fire, we can't wait any longer, et cetera, I applaud the fact that we have reached that critical mass and that critical point in this climate discussion. The house is on fire. We can't wait any longer, folks. So with that, we're going to segue to the new house on fire. Yes. Okay? Because the house is on fire and we can't wait any longer.
But that's a good house.
Yes.
Our house is on fire, and the guy who's sitting in the people's house is the one who's putting the torch to it.
Yes.
And so with that silly segue, but on target, let's talk about the fact that Nancy Pelosi, the Speaker of the House, has finally come out and said no one is above the law for real, and she has put under one impeachment umbrella all of the various investigations that the House of Representatives have been ongoing against Donald Trump because of this latest whistleblower case. Bob, do you want to give our people a background on a whistleblower case? Or
no, you can go ahead. While I was going to call up the impeachment background.
Well,
but it's pretty bad.
The quick shortcut: a whistleblower overheard something, and it was pertaining to national security, to the fact that someone in the White House had been involved in a conversation that was basically not right, was totally urgent and pressing, and so he made a whistleblower's report to the Director of National Intelligence, which is, I believe, the chain of command for that. And now, when a whistleblower complaint goes to the Director of National Intelligence, the law says within 7 days he has to turn it over to the Congress. And this acting DNI said, oh no, let me talk to the White House and let me talk to the Justice Department, let me talk to all these different people, and that's against the law. He's not supposed to do that. That's why there's a whistleblower protection status, and et cetera. Yes. And so when they discovered that whistleblower's complaint was tied to the guy in the White House's phone call to the president of Ukraine, and it had to do with whether or not he's holding back monies that were supposed to be sent to Ukraine to help shore up their defenses, help them in their assault against their rebuttal of the Russian assault in the eastern Ukraine. It's all national security and international politics, but boils down to he wanted to twist the arm of the Ukraine's president to get him to dig up dirt on Joe Biden. Boom.
Right. Joe Biden's son.
And his son.
Yes.
Joe Biden and Joe Biden's son working in Ukraine. Yes. So once that came out, it hit the fan, folks. And so all the slow roll for impeachment took on a massive turn. You got something you can tell us how that massive a turn was?
Well, I mean, as of yesterday, after months of resisting other Democratic members of Congress, Pelosi finally said that she would go ahead with the impeachment inquiry. In other words,
an official
inquiry, not just talking about it, actually going ahead, which is actually the first step to
possible bring up a vote on the House floor.
Right. Well, I mean, it would be sort of impeachment, then going on to the Senate for a trial, and eventually, possibly removal of office.
That's not very easy, especially with a Republican-controlled Senate.
Right. And my problem, and we've had this discussion for months, is it's also time-consuming. So I don't know how much can be done before Election Day 2020.
Well,
go ahead, Al.
Just in terms of the process, because people don't always understand the difference between impeachment and removal.
Go ahead. I was just going to
go.
read it, but I'd rather...
the historian, let's do it.
Well, the way the Constitution is written, there's a division of responsibility. So that when we talk about impeachment, it's really like the indictment in a case.
Okay.
So the House of Representatives decides whether there's enough evidence to indict a government official, and then they go to trial. So impeachment is the indictment. The trial then takes place in the United States Senate.
Okay.
And it's presided over by the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court.
Which in this case is a Trump appointment.
Roberts
was a conservative-leaning judge.
But the problem and the difficulty, it takes a majority vote to pass the indictment or the impeachment.
Right.
It takes a 2/3 vote to
in the Senate
to convict
the Senate
and remove. Even if the Democrats had a majority in the Senate, they have a majority in the House, so it's very likely there will be an impeachment indictment. But even if they had a majority in the Senate, which they don't, it is very unlikely that they would reach the level of 2/3 to convict. And it's never happened in the history of the United States.
Right.
3 presidents have been impeached or indicted. Andrew Johnson at the end of the Civil War, and he narrowly was not removed.
Yes.
They tried twice with Johnson,
but they weren't able to get
they couldn't get him out.
Then Bill Clinton was the action was being taken against Richard Nixon, but he resigned.
He short-circuited the process.
Well, once it was clear that there was bipartisan support for his removal, that Republican
Senate senators were going to vote to convict Richard Nixon.
Yeah.
That's
So
why he resigned.
They didn't need him on their hands
That's
as
right.
Republicans. So
Yeah.
Well, there were Republicans who actually apparently had a commitment to democratic process.
Yeah, for real.
Which we don't see today.
And none of them even were anywhere near there when they first started the inquiry, folk. Which is why I have listened to Elizabeth Holzman, who was in the Senate House back then, and she keeps making the point. Most Democrats and most Republicans were not in favor of impeachment when they started the Watergate hearings. It's when the details came out and they built the case step by step, got the American people to learn and understand what was going on, that it became a fait accompli that he was going to get convicted, and the Senate voted after the House first saw those 3 or 4 articles of impeachment. And so he basically said, I will resign, because he didn't want to be an impeached, removed from office president.
Right.
As you were saying with Bill Clinton.
Bill Clinton, look, it was bogus. And it was partisan.
Sure it was.
And there was no way that he was ever going to be convicted.
Right.
And so a Republican House passed it to the Senate, and then it was dropped.
Right.
And
but it had the proper effect in not allowing Al Gore to win the presidency.
Yes, I heard of
it. It disaffected enough Democrats and energized enough Republicans. It had the required effect, the intended effect.
Left a bad taste in people's mouths.
Yes.
But this guy that's in the office now, and I believe, what is it, the last straw, the stone, whatever, that broke the camel's back, you had 7 Democratic House members who were in supposedly 7 questionable districts. The thing about those 7 folks is that we're all from intelligence backgrounds.
Yeah.
And when they saw what the subject of the whistleblower's complaint was all about, they basically said, enough is enough. I don't care how iffy my district is or what my political career might be at stake, we have to do something about this man in the White House. And they came out and wrote an op-ed piece in the Washington Post that said, it is time to bring impeachment proceedings against this president. And when Nancy Pelosi saw that the 7 freshmen who were in districts she was, quote, trying to protect by slow-walking impeachment, when she saw that op-ed, I think she had some behind closed-door phone calls and meetings. Right. And then this public press conference that we spoke about the day before yesterday, last week when we aired, she said, no one's above the law, he must be held accountable, and formal impeachment proceedings will begin. Okay. That's where we are on that.
Well, this is what worries me, though. Maybe you've seen something. I have not seen any evidence of one Republican, either in the House, the Senate, or even out of office, who has said that impeachment must go forward. And that worries me.
The closest thing I heard to that was Mitt Romney had a few things to say about the questionable taste that this had in his mouth, something to that effect. He didn't come out and say it, but he's in one of those untouchable positions. Nothing's going to happen to Mitt.
Yeah, he's not up for...
He can run his mouth
as long as he wants. They can't primary him.
And as much as he was laid into by the president over these past few years, he could give a damn if Trump did get impeached.
But why isn't he declared to challenge Trump in the primary? The people in the Republicans have challenged him at such low level.
But they will skewer him. Mitch McConnell will basically set up, and this is just my opinion, but I think that's what would happen. They would lay into him. And as high up as Mitt is in the Republican hierarchy, they'd undermine him. He'd have nothing left Republican-wise. He'd have to run as an independent.
I do not think he has that much gumption to do that.
He's had it with running for president.
He does not have enough gumption to do that. He doesn't have enough gumption to come out and say, this calls for a serious inquiry about this man's conduct. He just says, it leaves a bad taste in my mouth.
It's just too bad we don't have John McCain to just put it down his throat.
McCain would be the guy who says we need to impeach this guy. But McCain's not with us, so we can't put words in a dead man's mouth. So the bottom line is...
Trump did do that.
I'm trying not to do
He was
that.
getting awards.
I'm trying not to do that.
Yes.
Here, I don't know how much time we have left.
3 minutes.
But the bottom line is the Democrats are going to have to not slow walk this.
Yeah.
They don't have time to slow walk this.
Yeah.
This particular house is indeed on fire, just like the global planet is on fire as far as climate change is concerned. So I'm hoping that they'll take a lesson from those 7 freshmen who said it's time to go, let's do this, and they will do it, because a lot of these people are ex-military, they're ex-CIA, they're ex-other intelligence officers. These are not people who are not used to making tough decisions and coming up against hard-nosed people.
Okay.
So they're ready for a fight.
Okay.
So
it scared and energized them to the point
let us
that they went ahead
hope
with this.
let us hope the rest of the party's that way. We've got 2 minutes left to deal with a couple of things. Let's deal with Freeport as opposed to the military guy.
Sure.
Because
Well, there was an issue on Long Island in the town of Freeport. A social studies teacher in the middle school sent pictures home from the post-Civil War period, primarily Reconstruction, and told the students to make up funny captions and dialogues. And some of
these very serious pictures of people in dire working straits, like sharecropping and picking cotton, stuff like that.
Now, I'm not sure if there were there may have been others, but there definitely were those. And parents, family members were outraged.
Well, the reason they should have been outraged is because from the reading, you correct me because you know this district, she was telling her students, make these captions very funny because I don't want to be bored.
Yes.
So, I mean, okay, go ahead.
I think the teacher was trying to, create an interesting assignment, but it was incredibly insensitive because of the subject matter.
Whoa.
Yes.
How could you be that obtuse and be a teacher? That is beyond my comprehension.
J.W. Dodd Middle School. That's where it was in Freeport.
This is out in Long Island, folk. There are a lot of Freeports on the globe, but this is Freeport, Long Island. Out there, is that Nassau County?
Yes. It's
out in Nassau County.
And she's a white teacher. She's not a new teacher. She's actually was the department senior teacher. And she has now written an apology to everybody for what she did. Yes. This was not my intent. It was inappropriate. But your point is correct. We see incidents of insensitivity in classrooms.
Okay, 15 seconds.
Time after time after time.
And it's the 21st century. Enough of that. This has been Media Watch, folks. I'm your co-host, Eric Tait.
I'm Bob Anthony.
And I guess I'm your
guest.
Dr.
Alan Singer, our
thank you for having
key
me.
guest.
Yes, it's always great to have you.
Catch us the next time and on YouTube and whatever Media Watch EVT.
Exactly.
All right. Next time, folks.